Have you ever finished a workday completely exhausted, but with the feeling that you've accomplished nothing of value? This is the story of a man trapped in the paradox of modern life, being busy all the time, yet empty of purpose. At 41 years old, Brian's life was measured in posts and engagement spikes. His job at a digital marketing agency in New York perfectly matched the always rushing atmosphere of the frantic city. His role was to hunt for the next fleeting trend, a cycle that left him exhausted and uninspired. But a silent question haunted him every night. What is the point of building a successful life if it's as shallow as a newsfeed that vanishes the next day? Upon returning home on the train, to the quiet of his town on the outskirts, the noise didn't cease. The noise was inside him, an echo of the infinite feed. On his bookshelf, the landscape architecture books called to him. Photos of serene gardens, of spaces that breathed permanence and purpose. The world he dreamed of building with his own hands. But the bridge between the dream and reality seemed long and impassable. Drained by the day's superficiality, he would look at the books and think,
I don't have the energy for this now, I'll start tomorrow.
And tomorrow became the perfect refuge, while his hands, which longed to touch the earth, reached for the familiar empty glow of his phone screen. The weeks turned into months, and the paradox became a prison. Brian's life was a treadmill of urgent but unimportant tasks, and the feeling of emptiness grew heavier and heavier, until one night, after another day of digital success and personal failure, he reached a saturation point. The pole. It wasn't just physical tiredness. It was an exhaustion of the soul, the frightening realization that his days were being stolen by a version of himself he didn't respect. Then a small flyer in a local coffee shop caught his eye, with words that seemed from another world, Japanese calligraphy and meditation. Find the silence. On impulse, moved by a need he barely understood, he signed up. The following week, Brian entered Master Kaito's studio. Inside, the air smelled of ink and jasmine tea, not burnt coffee. The only sound was the soft rustle of rice paper. Thud, and in the center of the room, a white-haired gentleman moved with a calm purpose that Brian hadn't seen in years. Brian didn't know it, but he hadn't just entered a studio. He had found a sanctuary, a place where silence spoke louder than all the noise in the world. The world. Brian expected a manual, a series of techniques, a clear path to mastery that could be hacked. Instead, Master Kaito gave him just a sheet of rice paper, a brush, and a single instruction. His task for the next hour, and for the following classes, was just one: to draw the enso, a Zen circle made in a single fluid brushstroke. It seemed simple, but his circles came out crooked, shaky, the ink smudged by his inner haste. Brian's mind, trained for years to optimize, to seek shortcuts and measure immediate results, went to war with the simplicity of that gesture.
Where is the progress?
He would ask himself, as another imperfect circle was born on the paper.
How is drawing circles going to help me design a garden? This is a waste of time.
The quietness of the studio, which once seemed like a refuge, now became a mirror of his own impatience. The frustration built for weeks until he couldn't take it anymore. At the end of a class, he approached the master, the agitation of his old life written all over his face. He spoke of the precious time he felt he was wasting and of his need to learn something useful. Master Kaito listened in silence. He just nodded, as if he had been waiting for that outburst all along. Then, Master Kaito looked at Brian, and in his gaze, there was no judgment.
Describe your work to me,
He asked calmly. Confused, Brian spoke of the chaotic flow of information, the need to react instantly, the hunt for clicks, and the superficiality of it all. As Brian spoke, the master picked up a nearby smartphone. With one finger, he replicated the universal gesture of our era, the infinite scroll. Images, headlines, and opinions flashed by in a quick, meaningless blur.
This.
The master said, setting the device down.
As the world's noise, it screams for a second of your attention, but it leaves nothing behind.
That it leaves nothing behind. He then turned, picked up his brush, and dipped it into the darkness of the ink. For an instant, the world seemed to hold its breath. With a single puff of air, a single fluid, and uninterrupted gesture, he drew a perfect inso on the rice paper. He held the sheet up for Brian to see.
And this is a universe of focus contained in a single moment. Its strength is not in the final shape, but in the 10,000 imperfect attempts that came before it.
You want to design gardens, places of peace. You cannot create a place of peace with a mind full of noise. Your daily hour of practice is not to master the brush, it is to master yourself.
In that moment, Brian understood. The circle on the paper wasn't the goal, it was the path. Brian left the studio that afternoon with his mind quieter than it had been in years. Master Kaito's lesson wasn't about calligraphy, it was about the architecture of attention. He arrived home and looked at his mountain of landscape architecture books, no longer with the anxiety of a man who needs to climb Everest, but with the calm of a builder who knows that every great structure begins with a single stone. He would apply the discipline of the single stroke to his life. His daily golden hour became his sanctuary. He no longer tried to learn everything. Instead, each week, he dedicated himself to a single thing, with the depth of a monk. 1 week was dedicated only to understanding soil types. In the next, he learned to draw, with perfection, a single species of tree, the oak. Then, he spent 7 days studying only the properties of lavender, its fragrance and its need for sun. Frustration was replaced by a serene curiosity. Anxiety gave way to a quiet confidence that grew each day. The noise from his digital marketing job began to lose its power over him. He was no longer trying to swallow the ocean. He was learning to appreciate the value of each drop, and drop by drop, he was building his foundation for the garden that would one day, inevitably, bloom. 1 hour a day, drop by drop. Time, which was once Brian's enemy, became his greatest ally. 5 years passed. 5 years of silent mornings, of brush strokes, and of a knowledge built not with the speed of a click, but with the solidity of a root that grows slowly, invisibly, before becoming a tree. The Brian who used to sit on the train to New York, drowning in digital noise, no longer existed. The marketing agency was just a distant memory. His first project as a landscape architect wasn't for a mansion, but for the city's public library, the place where, in a way, his new life had begun. At the inauguration, there were no loud speeches, only the soft sound of the wind in the leaves and the smell of damp earth. Brian, now 46 years old, was not in the center of attention. He was on his knees in a corner, his hands dirty with soil, adjusting a small plant. But, across the garden, Master Kaito was watching him. Their eyes met, and they shared a brief, respectful nod, a silent acknowledgement of a completed journey. In that moment, at peace amidst his creation, Brian understood the final lesson. He hadn't just built a garden. With 1 hour of focus a day, patiently, he had cultivated himself. This lesson resonated with you. Please leave a comment below, telling us to what garden in your life would you dedicate your golden hour. Like and share this video so that more people can discover the power of focus. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories to train your English. Until next time, and don't forget, 1 hour of depth will always overcome an entire day of distraction.